6 years ago, I really wanted to change my career and my life, and it took me another 4 years after that to actually make it happen. And so looking back, this is the advice that I wish I had gotten as I embarked on that journey. Hey everyone, I'm Alex. I'm a 9-to-5 engineer turned life coach, and I'm here to help you change your career so you can live a life that you love. So all the way back in 2018, I started considering new career options, and I knew I wanted to be self-employed. But I had never really considered myself anything other than an engineer, and so I was a little overwhelmed by all of the possible options and my lack of clarity on what I wanted. I knew I wasn't happy, but I didn't exactly know what else I wanted in life other than change. And over time, I came up with a list that was based on my skills and my hobbies and my interests. And the things on that list were photography, graphic design, and even an ASMR YouTube channel. And even though I had that list, I had a really hard time moving forward because I really wanted to make sure that I was choosing the right thing and that I wasn't making the wrong choice. And at that time, I really thought the wrong choice would mean a waste of time, a waste of energy, a waste of money, going down a path that ended up not being my thing or my next career path. And part of this was because I was really unhappy in my career at that time. And so I was really focused on getting out of there ASAP. And if I made the wrong choice, then that would prolong the time that I spent in my career. So I was really, really focused on needing to make the right choice. I also didn't want to make the wrong choice from the perspective of having a successful career and leaving that behind. I was already an engineer, I was making good money, I had a good stable position, and so from the outside, people would see me as successful, and so I really wanted to smoothly transition from being successful in one career to being successful in the next thing that I was doing without sort of any hurdles along the way, and I thought that making the right choice would help ease that transition. And all of this really resulted in me having a lot of analysis paralysis. I was like, I just need to read one more thing. I just need to watch one more YouTube video. I just need to continuously go back to the drawing board and do another personality test or something like that. And then I'll have the clarity that I need in order to make this decision. And so the advice that I wish I had gotten 6 years ago when I was stuck in analysis paralysis and I was stuck in my head trying to make this decision was that you'll never know until you try. There's no wrong decision except inaction. And the faster that you try, the faster you'll know if it's the right thing or not. So let me explain why this advice is so important. The first reason that this is so important is that it gets us out of our heads, out of that analysis paralysis, and into reality, into actually trying the thing. And we can spend hours and hours researching, watching YouTube videos, making a pros and cons list, all in the effort to make the best decision, but we'll really never know until we finally go ahead and try it. For example, one of the side hustles that I started back in the day was a photography business. And I had all of these logical reasons. I had all the pros as to why this made sense. It would lead me to be able to live the type of lifestyle that I wanted. I already had the skill. I already had this hobby of photography. I already had all the equipment. There were all these reasons why it seemed like it might be the right path for me. But ultimately, I didn't know until I got into it. I didn't know if it was right for me until I went through the process of actually launching that business and working with clients, and then I got a full sense of what it was going to be like. Another really simple example that you can think of is trying new food. You know, you can look at it, it can look really good, it can smell really good. People will tell you that, oh yeah, it's like sweet, it's salty, it's spicy, whatever. And you're like, I like all those things. They're like, it tastes kind of like chicken. And you're like, I like chicken. But ultimately, you'll never know if you like that food until you finally go ahead and try some. And I know that all of us want to really take like a logical, well thought out approach to making these decisions. And we're like, I need, to be logical and not emotional. And I can't just do things on a whim and I can't be risky. I need to think it through. But even the most logical people in the world, like scientists in a lab, they have a theory, but they don't sit around the house thinking about it. They get into the lab and they experiment. They do multiple experiments. They try a whole bunch of different things and they find out what works and what doesn't work. The second reason why it's so important to just get into action and try is because sitting in indecision and inaction is wasting so much of your time. You'll learn so much about yourself and so much about what you're thinking about if you just get into action. You could spend a couple weeks actually doing the thing and learn so much more about it and about yourself than you would in months and months of research and analysis. The next reason why it's so important just to try things out is that learning if something is a no is just as important as learning if it's a yes. I tried a lot of things before I finally landed on coaching. I alluded to them earlier. I did photography, I did graphic design, I had an Etsy shop, I started another YouTube channel that isn't this channel. I tried all those things, and that was all part of the process. Those were all things I was thinking about. I was curious about them. I was like, well, what if I actually pursued graphic design because I was interested in that all the way back in high school and I never did anything with it? And along the way, I did learn that those were a no for me, but it helped me cross them off the list. And I learned so many things along the way from all those side hustles. And I can link that video up here where I talk about what I've learned, but it wasn't a waste of time. I got to cross them off my list. I no longer was wondering about them. And when I finally came to coaching as my business idea and my thing, I had that clarity because I had been able to cross off so many other things on my list. It wasn't going to haunt me because I had tried those things. And I'm sure we've all heard the example of Thomas Edison and how many different variations of a light bulb that he tried before he finally found the design that works. I think it's like 1,000 or something like that. And someone might say to him, well, you've wasted so much time and this has all been in vain. You've accomplished nothing. And he would say, we've learned so much. We've learned that there's 1,000 different ways not to make this light bulb. We've learned 1,000 different ways that don't work. That's just as important as finally finding the thing that does work. So just remember that the right decision is always the one that just gets you into action. And there's going to be one of two outcomes. You're either going to like your choice and it's going to be the right choice, and that's great. Or you're going to find out that that isn't for you, and then you'll get out of what if, and you'll be able to cross that off your list, and you can move on to the next thing, and you'll have that momentum behind you of actually being in action and trying things, and it just makes it so much easier to move on to the next thing once you've already checked one thing off your list. So for me, I really think that the only wrong decision is just being stuck in inaction. And let's move on to the next reason. Speaking of finding things that work for you, and you could try something and it could be that, yes, that right answer. The next reason why it's so important to get into action and find that thing is because finding the right choice for you is just the first step. So when I think about when I wanted to quit my engineering career and move on to the next thing, I was so focused on, I just need to find my next idea. That's why I'm stuck. As soon as I have my idea, then I'll be able to quit and move on. But that's not really the case, right? That's like the first problem that I had to overcome. Once I finally had my business idea, I had to actually build a business. I had to learn how to attract clients and how to do social media and so many other things. And that's why it's so important to just get into action, because even if you find the right thing, you still have to put in all the work to kind of bring it to fruition. If you're switching careers, you need to put in all the work it takes to become trained and educated in that new career path. You need to become competent and more skilled. And so the faster you can just make these decisions and try things out, the faster you move on to the next step and the next problem, which is, getting good. And it doesn't have to be career related either. It could be like you want to move to another city and you spend all this time trying to find the right city. And by the time you do find the right city, that's not the end of the road, right? You still have to figure out, like, what neighborhood do I want to live in? Do I like the neighborhood that I chose? What's going to be my regular grocery store or my regular yoga studio or my regular coffee shop? Like, there's so many other things. You have to figure out how to make friends. So it's like the faster you can get past the first step, the faster you can actually start making things happen. And just as a little side note for anyone that is interested in starting their own business, just remember that getting your idea and developing your product is just the first step, and don't spend too much time here. You can spend forever building the wheel or building the first iPhone, and then you realize no one wants to buy your iPhone. And so the faster that you can realize no one wants to buy this iPhone and you can pivot and tweak it and move on, then the faster you can get towards having a real business. But you really need to put yourself out there and launch the beta thing to even know if that's what people want. And if you take 6 months to build the first iPhone and then no one wants to buy it, you've just spent 6 months. Is there a way that you could, put your thing out there within the first month or two and start to get that feedback and start to pivot? And the fifth reason why it's so important to just try things out is because sometimes when we take a really long time to finally go after what we want, by the time we get it, we don't really want it anymore. Like, we've changed, we've grown, we've evolved, and we get it and we're like, that didn't make me as happy as I thought it would. So an example of this from my own life is, like, in my 20s, I would always buy clothes that didn't quite fit because I was always planning on losing like 10 pounds. And it was like, okay, I'll just buy it now, and then when I lose 10 pounds, it'll fit. But it never really goes like that. And by the time those clothes actually fit me and I tried them on and wore them for the first time, I was like, these aren't even my style anymore because it took me so long to get to this point. And so by the time I finally had the thing, I didn't want it anymore. And so the faster you can get into action on these things that you're interested in, the more they'll relate to who you are right now. And if you wait forever and like 5 years down the road, you finally get them, then you may not actually like them anymore at that point. So now let's talk about how to get some clarity and get into action and get to a place where you feel comfortable to just give things a try and see how they go. So the first couple steps are all about getting clarity. And the first step is about getting clarity through self-exploration. And so this is really getting to know yourself a little bit better. A lot of us have gone a conventional path, or we haven't made a lot of conscious decisions in our lives, and we don't actually know what we want or what'll make us happy or fulfilled in life. And so it's time to start exploring this side of yourself and getting to know yourself better. And this will help you in two ways. So if you don't have any ideas, you just know you want change, but you're not really sure what will come next, then this can start to help you figure out what you want next. And if you're someone who knows you want change and you already have a couple ideas or a list of things, then this will help you start to sort through that list. Maybe you'll even cross things out, and you'll at least have a sense of, what seems most important or what should come first, if you have a long list of things like I did. So here's a couple things that fall under the self-exploration bucket. The first thing being your values. These are what is important to you. And a lot of us don't even know what our values are. We just kind of follow what society values and what we've been told is important, but we don't reflect on what's actually important to me. And I have a whole video that I'll link up here on how to start to identify your values. And values are super important. When we make values-based decisions, they result in long-term fulfillment and enjoyment and happiness in our life, rather than kind of short-term satisfaction or short-term, even fear-based decisions. Another really important thing to consider is your ideal lifestyle. And this is something that a lot of people don't consider. We just take for granted that we'll be working 40 hours a week, we'll be sitting behind a desk, or, we'll live in an area that's like close to work or an easy commute to work. And we don't really consider, work aside, societal expectations aside, what do I really want as far as my ideal lifestyle? For me, I realized that I didn't want to work 40 hours a week anymore. I didn't want to sit behind a desk or have to work from a certain location. I wanted to be able to travel more and work less. And I wanted to be able to live life a little slower and live in alignment with my values. And all of these things really just, for me, were slowing down and living in a way that would bring me joy instead of this kind of rushing around the 9-to-5 schedule of the corporate work world. Another way to do some self-exploration is to use systems such as Myers-Briggs or astrology or human design. I really love all of these systems because they just help you get a better sense of who you are. They help you understand your strengths and maybe your weaknesses and what might be the right path forward for you. And I really love systems that just give you the acknowledgement of who you are, and it can help you accept parts of yourself that society maybe doesn't accept. If you want to live in a way that's not the usual way, but you feel like you can't because you'll be judged or whatever, then these systems can really help you just accept you for who you are. A great example of this comes from the human design system. So if you found out that you were a projector in the human design system, then all of a sudden your lack of desire to work 40 hours a week and your desire to study and learn different systems all makes sense all of a sudden. And your inability to, initiate in life like a manifestor would, that makes sense all of a sudden. And so these systems can really help you find your place and accept yourself for who you are. So the next step in the exploration bucket is to get clarity through kind of outer exploration. It's from things like reading about what you're interested in, or learning more about what you're interested, or watching YouTube videos or things like that, to start to get a sense of what it might be like. Like for me, when I was interested in being a photographer, I dove into learning more about photography and the things that I would need to support me in like a portrait and wedding photographer skill set. And I just got a better sense of what it would look like if I actually was to become a wedding photographer. And so you can learn from people that are already doing it. You could watch videos or follow people on TikTok or Instagram or whatever and kind of get a sense of what they're doing. Or you can try and have a sit down coffee chat with someone who is doing what you're interested in doing and just pick their brain and get a better sense of things and what it's really like. And I think this could be really helpful for anyone who is interested in changing careers from one corporate career to another corporate career. It's kind of hard to experiment as much as I did when you're going from corporate career to corporate career, because there's quite a bit of training and education that's often associated with these jobs. Like if you wanted to go from being a teacher to an engineer, you'd have to go back to school for another 4 years. And so it can be a little bit harder to make these decisions. And so talking to people that are already in the industry can really help you get a clearer sense of things. All right, so step 3 is kind of my tough love step, and this is where you need to accept that there's going to be some uncertainty and you need to be okay with the discomfort of uncertainty. The only thing you'll know for sure is how happy or not you are in your current situation. And if you don't change anything, you know what you're going to get more of the same. And so are you happy with that or not? And part of embarking on big life changes is going to be uncertainty, and that is uncomfortable, and you just have to accept that it's part of the process. You're never going to be 100% certain until you try. So you're probably going to have to be okay with, at a certain point, taking a leap of faith based on your best judgment. And you can just say to yourself, this is as clear as I am right now. This is as clear as I can get. I'm pretty sure this is what I want to try. And now I just have to be okay with taking that first step and trying. And part of you is going to have to trust that you have this gut feeling or this inkling to do whatever you want to do for a reason. There's either going to be a lesson in there for you, or it's the next path you're supposed to walk down. Okay, so the next step is to get into action, but you don't need to go all crazy or go all in. You could try things in a low risk environment. So for me, that looked like side hustling. I knew I wanted to try a bunch of different things. I wanted to be self-employed, so side hustling made perfect sense. And I was able to try these things out in a low risk environment because I still had the financial support and stability of my current 9-to-5 job. Another idea for more corporate folks is you could try job shadowing. Maybe it's more of a thing that students do. It may be harder to job shadow as you get older, but that is one option. You could also try continuing education. So if there's an area that you're interested in moving into, maybe there's some continuing education you could do to kind of take a step in that direction and get a better sense of things. Of course, you won't be working in that area, so you won't know for sure what it's like to work in that area, but how else could you get a little bit closer to trying the thing that you're thinking of moving towards? Again, if you think of the example of moving cities, well, then maybe you could try vacationing or visiting that city for a couple weeks to get a better sense of what it's like to live there. So step 5, once you're trying things out from your list and you're getting into action, It's to do them long enough to really get a sense of things. And so for me, I went through the whole process of launching a photography business. For example, I really was curious about being a photographer, and so I went through all the steps. I built my portfolio. I went on Instagram and, posted on there all the time and attracted my first clients. And then I, did the shoot with them and edited it and delivered the photos. And I went through the whole process, and I really stuck with it long enough to get the full sense of things. And that's when I was able to make my decision and realize, photography wasn't for me, but I'm glad I tried it out and it got me into action. And of course, you could get clarity sooner than that. You may not need to go through the whole thing. Maybe you'll get that no right away. As soon as you try it, you're like, oh, this was nothing like I thought it was. I didn't enjoy that at all. But make sure that it's not a no from a place of discomfort from being a newbie at something. It's always going to be uncomfortable when you're not very good and you're just building up your skills. So make sure it's a no for the right reasons. Like for the photography thing, I realized I had a lot more fun doing it as a hobby than I did as a professional portrait photographer, and it wasn't as fun doing it in that sort of environment, and I didn't actually enjoy the process of editing and delivering so many photos to clients. And so that really gave me that clarity. But I didn't say no because I felt uncomfortable that I was not good at it or that I was a newbie. That wasn't the reason that I didn't go ahead with it. It was because it wasn't a fit for me. So I really hope this video has been helpful. I really encourage you to just give things a try and see how it goes. You'll never know until you try. And I hope that this video has given you some reasons as to why you should do this and some tips to help you get into action. And I really hope that it helps you finally make that change that you're dreaming of. So if you did like the video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. And if you like this type of content and you're looking to make a change in your life, then consider subscribing for weekly videos like this. And with that, I will see you in the next video.